Welcome to the Intercut podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he's got a Time TV. It's Arturo Zurita.
What I also have is no more virtual festivals, Zach. That's the saddest part, is that we now need to venture out into the world. Back to those Airbnb. Yeah. I don't even know what's worse, getting an Airbnb full of Musk from who knows who stayed before, or being in. I mean, you just went back to your first New York Little Film Festival. Is it like riding a bike? Are you going back into it like no problem, or?
I don't know. I did have like this weird feeling of like who was sitting in my seat before.
It's like Contagion, dude.
They had the guy come in and wipe down the theater before I even left my seat. So like that was nice and reassuring. But you know, the new procedures. We gotta figure out how to live in this world, I guess, and figure out how to go to film festivals in it, even if they don't want to make them digitally available. That's kind of been the hot topic amongst film critics, at least recently. Mm-hmm. A lot of studios are no longer sending out those digital screeners that we've been benefiting from so much over the last year and a half, and especially film festivals too. After many people applied for New York Film Festival, they notified critics that there would be no digital screenings for New York Film Festival. TIFF critics found out with 2 days before the festival that many movies they thought were going to be able to cover are not going to be able to be screened digitally outside of Canada. So I don't know if even a VPN works in those situations because they're like press registered accounts. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So studios are pushing back a little bit as, you know, it seems now like Delta variant and all this cases are only getting worse. It's a little weird to see this reversal at this moment of time. What do you think about how the world is sort of shifting back on some of its COVID-created standards for movie releases?
It's goofy. It makes no sense. So, like, some of the festivals, when they were coming out, they were like, oh no, some COVID outbreaks. What could we have done to prevent? Y'all know what you could have done to prevent this. You know good and damn well what you could have done. When you and I were talking about some of the lineups for these, some really great movies, going to streaming anyway. So why is it such a big deal to catch it when most people are going to be catching Dune at home? I know that's another conversation. I know you and I are trying to catch it in theaters and Dolby and IMAX, the biggest thing that we possibly can. But a lot of these are Netflix movies. A lot of these are Apple Plus movies. So what's this big deal on making it so difficult for critics, especially press members, when you've had very successful virtual festivals where things have not leaked, where you have been able to get good press from people being able to even see more. I know we know so many people who are able to get more press access, and shout out to them now being able to go to these places from this past year because of the ability that virtual screenings were able to give people. Meanwhile, you got these really big blockbusters. I love what they did with Venom, right? They took out Venom, then Shang-Chi did pretty well, so they re-released Venom. I heard, unless I'm mistaken, this is like super fresh from when we're recording right now, Halloween?
Yeah, I think just today, the day we're recording, they announced that Halloween is going to be dropping simultaneously in theaters and on Peacock. So another film becomes available day and date. They killed its theater potential, at least, I guess.
Wow.
Or maybe not, because that's another thing that's contention now, is whether or not these day and date movies are being handicapped at all in terms of their potential to succeed at the box office. You know, you have some movies like Suicide Squad, which supposedly underperformed, but now you have a movie like Shang-Chi, which just made a whole ton of money, and that's not one that is also available on Disney Premier Access. So what do you think is the difference between these movies that maybe aren't succeeding day and date and some movies that are succeeding with day and date?
There's so many other factors. For one, I love how it's the rated R movie that people are like, what? And the other year, we knew what rated R does things. Shang-Chi made 115, I think, over the entire weekend, the Labor Day weekend. It made,
and that's one that
I want to say
didn't have a digital option.
Did not have. Nope. I made 75 for the 3-day weekend. Black Widow made 80. Right. With the extra 60 that it made at home. So it's just really interesting, you know, going online and reading how people talk about something that purposefully ignore. It's all how you package it, you know?
Yeah.
So no, very clear that they're all still making money. It also obviously comes down to the fact that we are also talking Marvel. I'm not going to be oblivious to that. A Marvel movie, especially when you're at number 25, comes with a lot more people knowing what they're getting into as well. PG-13, meant for families, and you have a longer weekend. But I think it proves that it's not that bad when you still look back at the top 10. A lot of the, especially even the top 20, a lot of them are WB films. A lot of them still are. It's Space Jam, it's Godzilla, it's Conjuring made a buttload of money. So again, you have to pick and choose how you want to see it. You can see it negative, but I think you could also see it very positively. And again, to mention film festivals, the people who are supposed to love film the most, to see how, I don't know what the word is that you want to use, Zach, but like, I don't know the word, but I know it's this. I know it's this. The fact that people feel the need to be back in that festival circuit, it just feels way more like
nose up.
You know that you're keeping people out. Yeah, because all of the big movies are realizing that they're, like Halloween, going day and date. And when you look back at the box office numbers, comparing to everything that's happening right now, it's not the worst that it could possibly be. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to see some movies actually succeed and make quite a bit of money now, despite the current circumstances of the world. Like, it might give some studios a little bit more faith in putting their movies out theatrically, but it is a shame that there isn't the day and date option. I'm used to waiting for movies to be available. I don't mind. I think
people forgot.
Yeah, that's true. Something becomes the standard and then people don't want to go back to the way it was. I think the one major difference we're seeing, if we're going back to the festival situation, with Sundance, a lot of those movies that go to Sundance don't yet have a distributor. Not the case for a movie like Judas and the Black Messiah, which was one of our favorites at Sundance, and many others. But I think the majority of films that play Sundance don't yet have their distribution in place. Whereas a festival like TIFF, a lot of them do, especially those major ones, those movies. Dear Evan Hansen's, and they're all trying to plan this path into award season. So it's almost like the exclusivity is part of that hype building, and then it's, their inclusion in these festivals isn't about showing them to a movie-loving audience. It's about that exclusivity. It's about giving it to the select few people who can place the words. And so
fully well aware.
It's just, figuring out the motivations of all these people and why something might be less appealing for a certain studio. It doesn't really make sense to me for a company like Netflix, where it's all going to digital anyway, for them to be so stingy about it. But it's all part of their release strategies, unfortunately, which will keep us waiting for a little bit longer, but hopefully not too long. I don't know if you had a list of any of those like fall film festival movies that are really like high on your need to watch list, some stuff that you're on the lookout for. I have a few here if you want me to go through my top 5.
Shoot.
We were talking a little bit earlier offline about some of the movies that are playing New York Film Festival, and the big premiere at the New York Film Festival is The Tragedy of Macbeth, which is, of course, the debut solo film from Joe Cohen without his brother. Frances McDormand and Denzel Washington are starring in this one. It's shot in black and white. There's only that one promotional image, but it's got me hyped, and especially being, the opening night for New York Film Festival, that's pretty. They have a pretty strong track record in terms of the movies they select there, so I'm very excited for that one, as well as a couple other black and white movies. It's going to be a big year for black and white cinematography. Come On. I don't know if you saw that trailer of the new Mike Mills movie.
I didn't see it, but
Phoenix.
A24 messaged me. They told me to cry. I was like, not
exactly.
today. A24 was busy.
Prepare those tear ducts.
Right? That's what
Joaquin Phoenix looks really good in it. Gabby Hoffman, I've heard some really good things about. It seems really tender, seems really sweet. I'm curious about that one, as well as Belfast, which is the latest film from Kenneth Branagh, which I've heard described as like his Roma, which, that's high praise there for a guy like Branagh, who I've never really connected with a lot of his films, but he's clearly like an immensely talented guy, and if this is a story that's so personal to him, that sounds intriguing. The Power of the Dog, which just premiered out at the Telluride Film Festival to rave reviews. First film we're getting from Jane Campion in quite some time. A lot of our favorites are acting in this one. Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons. Yeah,
wow.
I'm hyped on it, man. It sounds like it's going to be one of the front runners for some Oscars love. And then, of course, gotta put Dune on a list like this, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dune is HBO Max?
HBO
Power of
Max.
the Dog?
Yeah, still day and date.
Is Netflix?
Netflix. Yep.
Macbeth?
Tragedy of
Is
Macbeth?
Apple Plus?
Apple TV Plus.
Titan is Mubi? I don't know what Come On is. I guess they're going theaters there. Red Rocket would be another one that I've been hearing.
Oh, good call.
Good call. That's got a really good performance. So I know that's one that's been on my radar that I'd really want to see. I've been still really hyped for French Dispatch. That's one that I definitely want to see on the big screen.
Yes,
I want to definitely make my way out there. I think they haven't removed it yet, but I was hearing mixed stuff from it. I know a lot of people were kind of iffy on it, but they said it was style over substance, and I was like, well, good. That's why I want a big screen for the style. And then in terms of Toronto, Dear Evan Hansen, I just got to see like what made him imperative to play a high schooler to the point that's why they don't want you to see it at home. They don't want you pausing on Evan and zooming in there to see all the stress that he had from those SATs.
Yeah, I think the premiere screening of Dear Evan
just
Hansen
happened, right?
is getting out right now, so maybe we can get some thoughts from Amanda at some point on that one.
But yeah, those are pretty much my only ones, and then I guess The Guilty. I'd just say
that one's going to be also on Netflix soon.
Yeah, that's also going to be on Netflix. Did you see what is it, Petite Maman? Maman?
I have a screening of that tonight. As soon as we're done recording, I'm gonna watch that.
Gotcha. All right. But yeah, those would be a couple of the ones that we have there. I know a lot of people are at TIFF in New York right now, so we're going to be getting some stuff coming out of there. I'm very curious to see how Chicago plays it, because I know usually after the stuff plays there, they're picking up a bunch of things over here. I'm curious to see how they're going to do their stuff. They did do a really good virtual one last year. Shout out to Sliff. They had a pretty good virtual fest as well. I think Philly refuses to say what their virtual stuff is, but they have their lineup out, and they're telling you to buy tickets to go there. So we'll see. As it gets a little colder and nippier, we'll see how they're going to be playing those festivals. At the end of the day, it still seems like everything's going to be going. Even if it goes to theaters, we've already noticed, it's like a 2-week run. Before that exclusive one night that turns into just being digital.
Yeah, a lot of these movies are coming to VOD faster and faster than ever. And like, if you have been following the movies that go onto the awards season path for as long as we have, like, sometimes that's like a half a year long wait or longer to actually get these movies at home.
I'd be staying in New York trying to get those screenings with you, sneaking in. And now... Literally,
that's how long we've been doing this.
Now it's on the other tab window that I have open on the computer right now with you. It's crazy. Things change fast, but... Hey.
Yeah. So we'll keep updated with more thoughts from the different film festivals as they conclude and as we get to see more of the movies. We will get to our Fantasia Film Festival top 5s in just a bit. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the Intercut podcast, either the video podcast on youtube.com or the audio podcast available on most podcatchers. I think I said padcast, like a Boston accent or something like that. Like, yeah, maybe that'll work as well.
You're excited for The Boys. They got that one movie coming out with Comer. What's some faces? I don't know who let the boys come together.
Yeah.
Every time I see the commercial for that new Ridley Scott one, and I was like, they really let Matt Damon and Ben Affleck back into the same room again. Okay, I'm excited for that.
They really gave him that facial hair. Sure.
That's my question for you, Gucci. I don't even know what I'm thinking on this one.
House of Gucci trailer.
What is it called?
And
House
The Last
of Gucci
Duel.
or The Last Duel. Which one? You got to pick one. You have to put it all on the line, possibly get COVID to go to a cinema to go see. Which one are you risking it all for?
Father, Son, and House of Gucci. Oh, come on, really?
Going with a Gucci mask? I'm excited for both, but does Gucci have a date?
I mean, look, I think Gucci is dated to late of October. Let me check.
Is that playing at any festivals? New York? TIFF? That
Gucci is dated to late November, and I don't think it's actually attached to any of the festivals yet, as far as I know.
Sliff.
Yeah, we'll see, Sliff. Probably AFI Fest or something like that.
AFI is another good one. I hope that they keep their stuff virtual, because they just did their their docs virtually during the summer. They have a really dope one because how much you pay for the Celine screener?
I think it's 19. So TIFF prices are pretty steep.
TIFF are pretty steep.
Yeah, that's true.
There's some $8 screeners, bro, at AFI. They're the way to go. I love AFI.
Yeah. Hey, as long as we're talking about Intercut stuff, follow Intercut on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are at Intercut Pod. That's Intercut Pod. That's short for podcast, not podcast. We're also Intercut Pod on Patreon, where you can support the show for as little as $1 per month. Thank you to those who have people on our Academy level tier right now: Arcademan, D.A. Zapata, Ewan, Tushar, and of course the producer, Awkward. So shout out to those patrons supporting the show at patreon.com/intercutpod. Also, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. A 5-star review is very much appreciated. When we get a new 5-star review, it makes me happier than seeing the title of the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Did you see they revealed the non-soggy bottom title of the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie today?
What is it?
Licorice Pizza. It's apparently slang for vinyl. Like, it used to be the name of like a vinyl record store in California or something. More like retro California knowledge brought to you by PTA that I didn't know, thanks except for Twitter informed me of that.
Yeah.
But Licorice Pizza, like that's a fun thing to say. Sounds like it could be like sang for some weird sex term or something.
Something, yeah. I know you like Soggy Bottom though, so I mean they're both pretty much sex terms, but I'd take the Licorice Pizza.
Shout out to Garrett, one of our newest Patreon patrons. Garrett, he did double duty and left us an awesome new review on iTunes calling Intercut the, quote, best movie podcast out there. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to, and hands down the best movie podcast out there. Thanks to all of you thanks for all that you do, he said, and thanks to you, Garrett, for that awesome review. Makes us really happy to get stuff like that. Also, thanks to Carl and Evelyn for their extremely lovely note this week. That really brightened our days to read that. So, yeah, lots of thank yous for the intercuties out there all around. And shout out to those of you keeping the Intercut Discord alive as well. A reminder that link is available in the description for our podcasts. Audio and video as well. We're talking about movies on there. We got spoiler chats going. Ewan is helping us out there. So if you need a community to talk about the latest movies you've seen with, head over to the Intercut Discord. We're chatting over there. All right, I think it's time for our topic of the week. And this week's topic is the Fantasia Film Festival. We went back to Fantasia virtually. The always interesting genre film festival full of erotic and gory and twisted and just all sorts of out there movies that are very unique and some of the most interesting new voices in cinema there. You always get an eclectic mix of stuff too from different countries. They always have a lot of Asian cinema too, which is pretty awesome.
Yep.
This is our second year now doing Fantasia. What was your impression of the whole Fantasia catalog and just Fantasia as a film festival?
It ran even smoother. I was really happy with them because they stuck with it being virtual. I think very few ones like the Night House and they also premiered Suicide Squad. Those were the theatrical ones that they were able to score there, which are perfect big movies to have at that fest as headliners.
Suicide Squad is a weirdly perfect match for this festival.
He goes way back with them. I know he's premiered some of his older stuff there before he went on the whole Marvel train. So I really like seeing that for him to take it back over there. But I thought the whole platform worked a lot way smoothly. I did get some comments on LME of people saying that I guess the same thing applies because Fantasia is Vancouver, right? I think.
Is it Montreal?
Montreal. They don't do like statewide things, so you would need a VPN, reportedly, allegedly, supposedly, to be able to get some of the stuff. But because we had press, it was a lot easier than last year. So they had everything just there ready for you to go. They would like count down when a screening was going to be on, so you had everything at your leisure there. And it was a bunch of really good movies and some movies that played in some earlier festivals from this year that I had to catch again because they were masterpieces. But overall, I thought it was pretty dope. A really good selection. And some shorts that were just, I don't even want to say disgusting, But Zach, you already know what I'm talking about. Some of the most bizarre shorts. You got warned. It had a really big warning there, but Fruit is not leaving my mind anytime soon.
No, not for certain. Fruit's definitely one of the more unique, more memorable,
unhinged
movies of short films out there. Giving some credit to Ivan Lee, who is the director behind this one. He's a dude who actually, I looked it up, I don't know if you saw, does a lot of visual effects work, has done some work on, I think it's Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Oh. Man of independent cinema.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got some high profile visual effects gigs, and then on the side, maybe the most like disturbingly horny movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, I would say that there are some directors in particular who may not be working with this man anytime soon.
I don't know. Maybe Tarantino might appreciate.
Maybe he likes it. Maybe
he likes it. Ivan Lee also did visual effects on Shang-Chi. I'm seeing on his IMDb, as well as the Suicide Squad. So yeah, he's busy, man. He's working.
Sheesh. Okay. Maybe he did have more rights than we thought he did with some of the stuff that he used in that film.
Yeah, so Fruit is actually kind of entertaining. Like I think it's just such a nonstop assault of this crazy morphed imagery that I really enjoyed it. It's like those YouTube poop videos in a way, but kind of like more for the NFT area in terms of its graphical style. It's crazy. I really enjoyed that. Another short that I really enjoyed, kind of on a completely different note, was Last Night at the Strip Club. I don't know if you caught this one. Sort of like a hybrid documentary and like almost YouTube style, like informative video, directed by Nicole Boswin. Yeah, like a story time. It's a short doc about this woman's last night working at a strip club, and the entire thing is told from her, talking to the camera, and there's some recreations that all star her, and there's some like graphics and visuals. It's really compellingly done. I think the woman who's starring in it, Andrea Werfern, who I think actually did a couple short films with this director, she's just very compelling to listen to. It feels very rehearsed, but like in a way that just makes the delivery perfect, doesn't necessarily make it feel inauthentic. So yeah, that one stood out to me as one of the more fun ones.
Dope. I don't know if you got to catch this one called Aria.
I didn't. Tell me about that one.
It's pretty much this couple decides to get this camera, and like a lot of the tech shorts that are out there, it's pretty much kind of like getting into the idea of surveillance and such, and what are you really signing away when you get these things. But one of the things we really liked about this was that we searched up the short films, and the website for this one actually sends you to a whole catalog where you can browse the actual cameras and devices that this company sells, and then when you click on one of the cameras, it tells you, it's like, are you sure you would like to accept the terms and conditions of whatever, and you click it, and it ends up taking you to what is surveillance kind of the characters in the short and stuff. So it's like you hack into the system and you're seeing things. So shout out to Aria for some really great I'm blinking on what it is.
Like ARG or whatever.
There you go. Yeah, the ARG was fantastic for that one. So that's one that I would definitely say that I'm looking forward to see what the filmmakers and specifically the marketing company is going to do with that.
Totally. You told me to catch Night of the Living Dicks was like visually just really
the
I don't know, it's very dynamic visually and very well done. Like, yeah, the prosthetic work is really, really good in the movie. It's
unless it was real, maybe it wasn't a prosthetic.
Yeah, they just found those people.
They went there with it though. Like I actually as out there as it was, that was again a part of the collection that Fruit was also in where I believe they called it the erotica something, like erotica exotica.
Yeah.
So it's like you're already pre-warned of what you're getting into, but they go all out with it. You have literally characters who are dickheads, literally, and how they're moving around in this world. I found it to be crazy, but nonetheless, you're not going to be bored with it.
Yeah, no, you say, like, it's a movie that went there. That's a description for just about everything in the Fantasia catalog.
In that category,
shout out to the film programmers here who are going through some really crazy material and picking out just, like, the craziest, or maybe not the craziest. Like, I'm kind of curious if
what didn't make the
things
cut?
that are too out there for Fantasia. I don't know if that exists.
If you make something and the Fantasia people are like, nah, that's where we cross the line, then like maybe you need to reel it back a little bit at that point.
Yeah. Let's start our top fives in just a sec. But I don't know if you want to hit a couple movies that we saw that aren't in our top fives before that. I caught up with Strawberry Mansion, which is a movie that I know you saw at Sundance. Mm-hmm. Although I was not so... I didn't jive with the movie's pacing. I kind of felt like there was almost no momentum to its plot. I was blown away moment to moment with just the visuals of it, the production design of it, these like almost like storyboard looking homes, or like like child crafts assembly kind of props and stuff, and just the imagination of some of it. It's a really out there visual experience. I kind of wish the plot was tighter, but it does make me really curious about the directing team behind it.
Yeah, no, that was one of the ones that I caught at Sundance. That it's very difficult to like pitch to people because they either jive with it or they don't. I saw this one right at that point where you've binged so many movies, you're like half tired, you're in this twilight zone, and that is the perfect place to watch a movie like this that takes place in a dream state. Because like you said,
exactly.
You're in there, with the pitch that it's this idea that the government is taxing dreams, but really it's this sort of like just journey that this guy goes on where he's disassociating reality from life and all that, and if you're watching something on TV right before you're about to knock out, if you can stay awake for the entirety of this movie, I think what you're gonna get in your dreams is gonna impact you even more. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they do because they stretched out that budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Made the most of it and created something that is like very, very unique. And that plot is a really cool hook. I just doesn't really move much from there. Mm-hmm. Another one that had like an intriguing setup, but I don't know if it fully nailed it, was #Blue Whale. I don't know if you actually watched this one. It's the latest from Timur Begmenov. I'm really bad with his last name. The Screen Life team, yeah. The people who did some work on Searching, did some work on Unfriended, did some work on, what was the one that we watched earlier this year? Profile? Is that what it was called?
Profile, yeah. He actually directed that one. He's pretty much got the entire genre on pat. If it's on a screen, he's gonna knock on your door. He's gonna snatch that movie up. But you got this one. This one expired on me.
Yeah. This is a kind of like an urban legend horror movie of sorts. It reminded me in terms of its plot a little bit of We're All Going to the World's Fair, a movie that we caught at Sundance earlier this year, where it's this online game that people are participating in and they end in killing themselves. And, it's an intriguing idea for the Screen Life setup. I just think that ultimately, a lot of the plot points felt extremely foretold or like predictable. It's a movie that kind of relies on its twisty nature, but it was easy to see the twists coming, partially because a lot of the twists felt extremely similar to the twists in that movie Profile that we saw earlier this year, and especially the romantic relationship that develops in the film. It's so similar to that movie that it's almost like they have an outline that they're applying to these different genres. I also think that the movie is just not necessarily in a completely finished state. We noticed all these like translation errors or just like little things. At one point she gets a call and the word accept is in red and the word reject is in green, and then she clicks the red accept, but it rejects the phone call. You know what I mean? So it just needs it needs to be combed over a little bit more. But it's cool that we got to see it in this form too. I don't know how much that necessarily will fix the movie as a whole, but it's an interesting experiment.
Interesting. Yeah, looking forward to it.
I don't know if you want to even touch on You Can't Kill Meme, documentary about the rise of or the rise of meme culture and this idea of meme magic and the power that memes hold, and also touches on a lot of similar stuff to a different documentary that we watched, Feels Good Man, in the way
that one.
Right-wing politics have come to embrace internet memes and meme magic to try and stoke power for their movements. Yeah, I thought it was way better handled in Feels Good Man. The execution here reminded me, you brought up this comparison too, reminded me of A Glitch in the Matrix, a movie that we both really found objectionable in certain regards.
Despised.
In terms of how they wanted to tell their story and the platforms to which they cede over to these like deranged people. It felt a lot similar to You Can't Kill meme. I did not jive with this one.
It came off more like a movie where someone's prying on the subject matter in order to be able to get a documentary that they want to play at a festival, and it's like, that's not what you want. And there's various elements to it, because there's like the text that they use, the style that they go for, the way of editing, and then you hear the music, and it's like, this doesn't like suit you as a filmmaker. It seems like you're cosplaying the subject that you're researching, and that, I don't know, it was really weird, especially when it comes to this subject matter. It teetered a line. I didn't really like it. I got very upset. I was yelling at the screen multiple times, and then I kept seeing that we still had like an hour left to go. I was very upset with this one, but I appreciate it for the fact that I get to repeat a recommendation for last year's must-watches, in my opinion, from Fantasia, which is Feel Good Man. Definitely go check that one out. Absolutely.
Any honorable mentions before we start our top fives? I've got a couple here.
I had this one that was called Seobok, I believe is how it's pronounced. Pretty much you got the main actor from Train to Busan, and he's like taking care of this AI, like he is fully AI, and they got this back and forth. It's kind of like a police procedural thing that's going on, and it's very slickly shot, and you're dealing with all these ideas about like, what are the rights that AIs have? Do they sleep? Them not eating, does that really make them human? The ins and outs of all of that. It never really gets as deep as it thinks it is. They have this very, they have some setups with very cheesy payoffs, but, you know, I see this one doing pretty well on Netflix, or maybe even Shudder, because we know Shudder likes to pick up a lot of the Fantasia stuff. Another one would be Hotel Poseidon. It's this dude who's running this hotel that was handed down to him, but this thing is ugly. Everybody is as pale as can be. The aesthetics in this thing are ridiculous. It probably has some of the best production design. I don't really know what was going on, because there are like dead people in this hotel as well. It is rotting from the core. Like I said, everyone's just sickly. It's almost like I don't know if it was supposed to be like purgatory or whatnot. Pretty much everyone downs on this dude who's running this hotel. He gets used, abused, everything possible. And then the aunt who's running the hotel passes, and that's pretty much what gets the ball rolling, because without her, they don't get her, it's not the pension, but the money that she receives to actually keep it afloat. So I would definitely check it out for the production design. I thought it was pretty good, and maybe some people have different theories on what it all represents, because I had no idea what was going on halfway through. I didn't even know what room we were in the hotel, but some crazy looking stuff in there. What about you?
Awesome. I'll give a quick shout out to Baby Money, which is kind of like a low boil.
I got that one too.
Smash and grab thriller where robbery goes wrong, you know, one of those robbery gone wrong movies. And I think it's done at an interesting pace. It's kind of takes you slowly through this one night, and all the little things that are that kind of turn their fortunes. In terms of the way that it went beat by beat, I appreciated, even though it's maybe a little bit predictable, and sometimes the characters are making decisions that you don't fully agree with, but I thought it was entertaining, at least. So I liked Baby Money, and then I also liked Martyrs Lane, which is going to be available on Shudder soon. Martyrs Lane is a story about a young girl in a new house who's having nightmares, who then starts to see visions of ghosts and stuff, including another young girl who then becomes her friend. But is she a friend, or is she bringing in some nefarious elements? I think you can kind of tell which way this is going, considering it's also going to be a Shudder movie. I thought it was done really well. It had a very unsettling nature. The way that they drop ghosts in kind of reminded me a little bit of Haunting of Hill House stuff, in terms of just the atmospheric approach. I think I think it's a solid movie, and definitely going to be pleasing the Shudder crowd and probably the Fantasia crowd too.
Okay.
All right, so you want to get into our top fives? Should we start
Let's
with
do it.
my number 5? I got a movie here called Stanleyville. This one's directed by Maxwell McCabe Locos. It's about an office worker who gets selected for a once-in-a-lifetime competition to win a car, but maybe much more, where she gets locked in a room with 4 strangers to compete in a series of eccentric and strange games. And this is a very strange movie. It's very deadpan. It's got very quirky characters. It's got all these weird elements that are kind of unexplained or unexplainable, even in some way. But I was intrigued by it. I thought the performances were really good. I thought a lot of the comedy beats were done very well. I was laughing out loud, even if I don't necessarily know the purpose of some of the things that happen. It was compelling, right? Like it just sort of drew me in certain ways that I can't necessarily explain, like the purpose of certain beats or the real meaning behind this movie in general, other than I can say that I was entertained by it and I thought the performances were really good. So yeah, I'll give Stanleyville a recommendation. I put that one up at my number 5. But how about you?
Hopefully
what you got
the link is still up, because that's one of the ones that I wanted to see. I'm gonna start off with the Satoshi Kon doc called The Illusionist. Satoshi Kon being one of the greatest, not just animators or anime, but just one of the greatest storytellers. Last year we were doing the LME Listens, and we were getting a bunch of recommendations from a lot of people. This was one of the ones that I was told binge the entire filmography. It's only 4. I know he's got a mini-series, and he's got a movie.
Yeah, I think that was Brady gave us that recommendation.
And they talked about this one that he never finished. Like, I think he got like a third or fourth of the animation in, and I'm listening to this, and it is better than probably 90% of the animated films that we've gotten in the last decade. They said that he's got the whole story out there, but someone would need to animate it, and that's like the most prized possession that they have. And I think that's where the doc falters, and where it gets a little bit into his creative process, but you can tell this is a lot of people who are, I'm not saying benefiting from it, but they definitely want to uphold his legacy, right? They know that there is still potential and money to be made from his projects, and you could see this more as like they're trying to make sure that you remember who he is. They're not looking to see him at a bad light. I know one of the ones that we both liked was Clay Dream earlier on in one of the another virtual festival that we saw, and that one did get into some stuff and like faults of the guy, and I know that in a real gritty Satoshi Kon doc, one that he would probably approve of, they'd get really deep into the psyche of what this man was getting into. I don't think if you're a fan of the man that you're going to find anything new that you don't already know, but I think for anybody who wanted a basic just kind of like legacy doc, this would definitely fill that spot.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we saw that Kevin Smith doc back at South by Southwest, where it was like a pretty good overview, but it wasn't a deep dive in any way, but I still appreciated it as a comprehensive overview.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 4 is a movie called Sweetie, You Won't Believe It, which I believe was a Kazakh movie. It's directed by Yamar Nurgalayev, and it's a very funny film about a man who goes on a fishing trip with 2 of his friends to blow off steam before the birth of his firstborn child, and then ends up in a plot out of The Hangover or something like that, where he encounters some dangerous criminals and a deranged killer, and a series of unfortunate events finds them like on the run without ability to get back home safely, and it's one of those comedies where they keep like raising the stakes and making narrow escapes, and they're just lucky enough to slip out of danger's way in ways that are really rewarding and really funny. The comic timing is so good on this one. Like, it really does feel like a Kazakh, slightly gorier version of The Hangover. I really did enjoy this one. It's got very funny performances. So it totally enjoyable, a good time, really fun movie from Kazakhstan. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen a lot of movies from Kazakhstan, Borat not included.
don't think they approve of that one over there. But
Nah.
what I have at my number 4, and I believe you may have even a little bit higher, is Hellbender. So I'll wait for you.
Yeah, this is my number 3 actually,
well.
so we can talk about it right now.
Oh, dope! Let's go. This one was really dope. This, as we learned, is an entire family, mom, dad, sisters, all coming together to make this movie about a band that goes by Hellbender, but also at the same time, Hellbender is something that you learn about on the second half of the movie. I guess I don't really want to spoil it. There isn't even a trailer out for this one as we're talking about it right now.
I think you can guess a little bit from that one promotional image. It's kind of a witchy movie, you know. But I think what's cool about it is that it's like a hangout, right? Like it's not like a cast spells and like kill people kind of movie. It's this mother-daughter bonding thing for the most part. Mm-hmm. It's their relationship. It's them learning to. One learning what she is from the other. I think that element of it is really, really cool. You know, it's a very lo-fi movie. I think you can tell this was a movie that had a limited budget, but even with that limited budget, they're able to do a lot of really cool things. You know, they are the directors, right? The mother-daughter team, as well as the father, are the directors, writers, producers, editors, cinematographers, even the composers of the music. But it's done so well, and it's so cool that I was really entertained by it. And plus, they keep kind of raising the tension of the story until the end, when it's like genuinely frightening, right? Like it's first it starts fun, and then it actually gets into some of the scary stuff, and I found it super effective.
Yeah, no, I thought it was pretty solid. I just love that idea of them passing the camera around. Whenever one of them is not as good, it's like, all right, now you're the cinematographer, right? And action.
Have to make sure one of them's always not in the scene.
You know, you can never actually build one like that. But yeah, I just really love the behind the scenes to it, and just how the story in and of itself also comes from like what they're going through. Because they said that the daughter, the older one who's in there, who plays like the friend who she meets, that would be the older sibling who has already moved out of the house. They wrote this and came up with the idea once the younger one was going to move out of the house. So I'm really curious to see what they're going to be doing next. I think this will be a pretty big one. I know it's getting a Shudder release, so hopefully this puts them more on the map.
Yeah, Addams Family Films is the company. It's Toby Poser, John Adams, Zelda Adams, all doing it. So shouts to them. It's a really cool movie, and yeah, it's going to be on Shudder in 2022. So we'll make sure to give that another shout when it's more widely available. So that was my number 3. That was your number 4. What is your number 3?
Mm-hmm. Did you catch King Knight?
I didn't. Tell me about it.
Oh, dude, I think you would have liked this one. So, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Tone Deaf. The director of this did Tone Deaf, which came out a couple years ago. I'm not the biggest fan of that, and it's because he made that movie that I can't really call this a dark comedy. Because he also made Excision. I don't know if you ever caught Excision. That is one nasty movie, dude. If you search up the trailer to this, and if you watch the movie, that's imagery you won't get out of your head for a while. This was delightful. It's about a Satanist, right? And he has his own cult. But it's played by the dude from Criminal Minds. And he's running his own cult made up of like Andy Milonakis and just like people who don't really know his past.
Right.
And it's when his past comes up that they kind of start losing their leader. Pretty much it's just the story of a group of friends and what happens when the leader isn't who you thought they were, or when they start losing what made them, that self-confidence, that leadership, just wrapped up in an occult type setting. I thought it was pretty funny. Aubrey Plaza plays a pine cone, and in my research, it turns out Aaron Moorhead, one of the Endless Boys, came in and actually shot a couple of the scenes. So hey,
hell yeah,
tighter than you'd think. So I think you would really like this one. I thought it was pretty funny. It had some pretty good jokes in there, and yeah, was not expecting this from the director who made Tone Deaf and Excision, but quite delightful.
Awesome. King Knight, you said that one was?
King Knight.
Awesome. So then we are at my number 2, which is a movie that you caught back at South by Southwest. Amanda caught it there too. I was very jealous because, who has time for a 3-hour documentary? Turns out it should be everybody, because Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, A History of Folk Horror, is so good. It is that good. It is so interesting and informative, so deeply researched and thought out and well organized. You know, this is a movie that moves through all different types of horror, from witchcraft to voodoo and hoodoo to zombies and all sorts of folk horror elements, and very like in a lot of with a lot of detail explains where these scary elements come from, why they are derived from real human emotion, what happened culturally to bring these stories to prominence.
Crazy.
I was so blown away by just how deep it is, how many things that are iconic horror images that it brings up and uses. Just like the list of films mentioned, there's letterbox lists of the movies mentioned, and it's like more than 100 movies long, and now I kind of want to go through and try and watch all of them, because this is a movie that gets you excited about their place in history, right? Like, it puts them within a greater context and kind of shows you the value of all these movies too. I was really, really, really so impressed by this one. I thought it was so cool. I'm so happy to have caught up with this one.
I'll tell you who's got time for it. Me, because spoiler alert, this is my number one, bro. I had to see this masterpiece of a movie again, dude. When they get to things that you don't think they're even going to cover, you're like, oh, you're really going to go all the way down there? You're going to bring up, I don't even know if I want to spoil it, but they cover everything. They have this box set that's coming out. I don't know if you saw it. I was listening to the interview, and they said that they had struck a deal for this box set. Dude, the massive one already sold out. The box set comes with a bunch of movies that they mentioned within the doc itself.
That's so cool.
There's like 16 discs. It comes with posters. Dude, they said it was like 8 hours of extra behind the scenes that they would yet to mention. It looks so beautiful. It thing costs like $200, but I really want to drop the money to get that thing. I highly recommend.
If you're like a young horror fan and you want to learn more about the genre,
it's the best of the best.
That $200 box set sounds like the best Christmas morning ever, or whatever. Yeah,
literally, because it's remastered horror films that not a lot of people have seen. Right. And I think this is the best example of a documentary where if you're a novice and you don't know too much, this is perfect. But that it also hits it for the avid horror fan, where there's plenty in there that even if you do know it, you're just going to respect the way that they make these connections. And a lot of the interviews that they were able to get, she did a fantastic job with it. So highly recommend it. Definitely put that one on your radar. Spoiler alert, it's my number one again for this, because it's that fantastic.
Yeah, it feels like it should be too big of a topic for one documentary to bite off, but I think it's also so well organized and how it goes through all these different beats. And it's like this is really a comprehensive look at so many different things. I mean, I'm sure there's something they left out there, but I'm struggling to come up with it. It's awesome. I love that documentary.
Shout out.
So, if my number 2 is your number 1, I have a feeling your number 2 might be my number 1. What do you have at number 2?
It ain't the one with the screens. It's the one with the glass. Okay. Glasshouse.
Yeah.
It's a story from South Africa that's very interesting when you actually look at it from their lens and the stuff that they went through in South Africa and how they kind of see their past history and memory. But pretty much there is a disease, a virus that's out there. You know how it goes, Zach. These festivals, they all have to have one. The virus causes you to lose your memory.
I wonder where they got that premise from.
Every single, yeah. So they did supposedly make this before, COVID came down. I think they had said that they filmed it like as soon, they had the idea and ready to go as soon as it started or whatnot. I can't remember how it goes, but they do end up retroactively adding in a magazine that COVID 20-something, I guess, has become a thing, but that this is even worse than that. The idea being is that you have this group of sisters. They're in this glass house, and as long as you're in there, they're not, getting exposed to this thing that causes their memory to go away.
Toxins in the air.
It's got this little memento play with it when you realize, like, what if one of the sisters wanted to go out? What if maybe one of them doesn't even realize that they've been exposed to the toxins, especially when a stranger comes in, shakes everything up.
Yeah.
The poster is horrendous. So don't judge it by the poster. But I am really hoping that they get a pretty good release with this because I think it has some potential. And I was reading up that they had a whole deal that was struck with this company from South Africa, and this being the lead film that they're going to be putting out there. I thought it was a pretty decent thriller, and I would recommend it. Put it on your radar.
Yeah, it's a really cool movie. I knew you were going to put it on your top 5, so I left it off mine. It's cool because it has almost like a Game of Thronesian like powers shifting dynamics between the characters, like seeding little truths to people and watching that like split people apart. I like that aspect to it, how it's really it's one of those movies where it's like, oh, it's the danger out there, but the real danger's in here,
Yes. That.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd recommend it.
Okay, Glasshouse is a very good pick, but that means you left me Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes.
My most hyped.
Supremely joyful movie from Japan, directed by Junta Yamaguchi and written by Makoto Unda. I was blown away by this movie. I can't even wrap my head around all the different like outlines and storyboards and rehearsals and like blocking that you need to do just to get this exactly right. The premise here is that a guy discovers that he has a TV and security cam setup that travels 2 minutes into the future. No more, no less. It's 2 minutes into the future. So he figures out what to do with a TV that transcends time and space, right? But only in a limited amount. And what I think is so amazing here is they've looked at that time travel conundrum that leads to so many plot holes or weird ideas that don't really work out, and he tackled it in a way that kind of limits what you can do. That 2-minute time loop structure puts really understandable boundary around what they're doing, but also creates a scenario that's immediately rewarding. You just have to wait 2 minutes, and then they'll do something that loops back up on themselves. It's so cool. It's so playful. It's so inventive, and they gradually raise the stakes in a way where they're cleverly planting things that are going to reward down the line that it's just so fun and silly throughout. I had such a good time with this movie. This is not only my favorite movie of Fantasia Fest, it's easily one of my favorite movies of the year. So, yeah,
Ooh,
I really liked this one, dude. Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes.
It reminds me a lot of One Cut of the Dead, which is one of my personal favorites.
It's gotten some comparisons to that. I think it's from the same studio.
It's the director is Shinichiro. He's on the poster for 2 minutes, praising it, saying, "I love this movie. This movie's fantastic." It was one of my most anticipated of the fest. I really love the credits where they show you how they made everything. The screenwriter, who I believe he
shot on iPhones.
Well, it was not shot on an iPhone. I listened to the thing, and the iPhone was a monitor.
Oh, interesting. Used iPhones.
They know what they were doing, Zach. That was one thing.
We also didn't mention, this is all done in one take and in real time, which is another crazy element to add on top of the time travel thing.
It's not done in real time. Well, it's shot to look like it's in real time.
Yeah.
And they do it for every 2 minutes. And I love how the guy said, he's like, it had to be 2 minutes because he was a mathematician. He's like, if it was 1:55 or 1:30, it would have screwed up the entire thing the way that it built. Yeah, I think it's a pretty fun movie. I think it did get a little repetitive for my taste, but I love the behind the scenes and showing you how they were able to make the entire thing. And I'm curious to see what he does next because I know Shinichiro last year also had another one that he did with special actors, and I really love that. So to see both of these guys continue up and maybe even collab in the future, that'd be dope.
Yeah, I get the repetitive thing. For me, I kind of just enjoyed seeing things play out again and from a different angle, and I think they did enough with it where either you're learning new context or just to see it inverted keeps it somewhat enjoyable. But by the end, the way that some of those things pay off is just so immensely fun, so immensely rewarding. I ran it back. I watched it twice. It's a really good movie. Yeah, it's a really good movie. Anyway, those are our picks from the Fantasia Film Festival, a really awesome film festival. Let us know if you caught any movies out of Fantasia and what your favorites from it are. We are going to wrap this up with a quick new to see and give you some picks for the week. Art, I don't know if you have any recommendations for the people at home, but I can start us off with a documentary that I'm assuming you've seen because you, like me, were a child with an interest in basketball in the early 2000s when a certain brawl emerged.
Malice in the Palace, bro. Talk about
Detroit's
it.
Palace. Yo, Untold, Malice at the Palace, the new documentary on Netflix, part of their Untold series. Honestly, I haven't watched any of the other movies from the series. You can talk more about that.
Yeah, I caught the boxing one pretty good, but this is the best one.
This one is really good, man. It's more than it's a story that I'm interested in. I think it's a really well assembled piece of documentary filmmaking where oftentimes they're able to, whenever somebody references a little detail, they're able to then cut away to that detail, whether it is the throwing of the cup or referencing the fan and then talking to the security guard who was going to take away his season tickets, or even
talking to the fan.
Yeah, talking to that fan. Or one of my favorite moments when Jermaine O'Neal calls Ron Artest a coward, and then they cut to Ron Artest, and he's like, yep, I'm a coward. There. It's just like, you get some really raw interviews, some really emotional confessions from these guys who were really affected by this. You know, I feel like you can even see it in the way that Jermaine O'Neal carries himself, that it kind of completely changed him, this incident. Mm-hmm. You know, I thought it was just a very well-told version of a story that is like burned into my brain from when I was younger. You know, it's, I think, honestly, one of the 5 biggest sports stories from when we were growing up.
Easily.
Just in terms of its impact and how the reverberations throughout the culture that it had. I thought this was an excellent documentary. Talking about watching things twice, I ran this back again so I could show it to Caitlin. It's really, really good.
No, really, the entire Untold series, I think, has been killing it with all the different sports angles that they've been taking it. This one's easily the best one because, like you said, it's a story that we all know about, and for the most part, it's just got that I don't even know, the factor of, like, it's what the name is, Malice in the Palace. You see all of these guys as being the most disgraceful thing that could have happened because they got to fight with the fans, and no, there's a line that needs to be drawn, but dude, like you said, they dissect this to the craziest degree. Like when they had the police officers, and the police officers tell you what he did, and then they show you the footage.
Yeah, sure. You weren't trying to make some sure.
For sure. 100%. Yeah, you don't know who he was. But yeah, no, I would definitely put that one on the radar. I know Netflix also had the Bob Ross doc, another one that I thought was a pretty decent look into the business side of his doc. They have his son doing a lot of the talking and bringing back on how he started his career. Mainly, I don't know if you caught this one. The people who signed him kind of screwed him out of everything. They weren't looking to sell Bob Ross the personality, which is what we all love. They were looking to sell Bob Ross officially merchandise. You know, they wanted to push this down to the craziest degree, and a lot of people didn't even want to get interviewed for the doc because they were afraid of getting sued. So, pretty interesting little doc. It's the complete opposite of what you want to hear.
The lack of those interviews didn't take away from you?
Not really. I mean, I think it's an interesting topic, but it's also like when you're dealing with Bob Ross, you don't really want to feel those things. So it's almost like very just sad. There's like even one thing that, I mean, growing up watching Bob Ross, listening to Bob Ross, when he smacks the paint thing, and you're like, oh yeah, they got a bunch of that. They have a whole compilation of him doing that. And then they hit you with this theory on why he did that. And it's like, no, that's messed up, bro. Why you gotta take away one of my favorite parts of the show? It gets dark. It's a pretty dark documentary. I only recommend it because of how iconic Bob Ross is, and it's very interesting to see the behind the scenes in terms of the business side of it. But on a happier note, HBO gave us season 2, which I have not caught up with. I was actually going back and rewatching what I had already seen while I was on a road trip. The Other Two. I think you were catching this one as well. You caught season 2?
Yes, I've caught season 2. At least the 6 episodes they sent us. It is
I need to get
hilarious.
to that joke.
If anything, it might be better in season 2 than it is in season 1 because they've really settled into their characters. They know who they are now. They know the dynamics, and they're able to play them out perfectly.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
They got a brother.
Go ahead.
He's Justin Bieber. And these are the other two. What are they doing?
Right.
One's an one's trying to be an actor.
What is it like when your younger brother is way more successful in the entertainment industry than you are in that it's what you were trying to be? Like it shows the unglamorous side to trying to make it in the entertainment industry, but it's also just like very funny in the way that it depicts people and like modern culture. Like there's a joke that I usually never find funny which is like people Googling weird things, but I always find it funny when they do it. Like the way that it'll be like Zosha Mammoth Ageworth net feet or something like as a Google term. You know, they find really funny phrases or like turns of phrase consistently with the show.
There was this one on the red carpet. I can't remember what the brand was, and I really don't care, but it was pretty much like, it was like Tostitos. He's like, can you say you like Tostitos? No, but can you say that you really like Tostitos to the camera?
I think it was Bagel Bites.
Like, thank you. Bagel Brother, like,
which is
can you
way
say you like
funnier.
Bagel Bites? It's hilarious. No, I think they get all that down. It's definitely the type of comedy that's up my alley. And as we wait for the next season of Hacks, definitely put this one on your radar.
Yeah. Season 2, episode 2 is legitimately one of the best half hours of comedy television I've seen
get to it
this year. It's so funny, and there's actually some pathos to it. Like, it's actually kind of moving by the end, but not in a way that feels inauthentic to this show. I really like the other two. Co-written and a lot of the episodes directed by Chris Kelly, who did that movie Other People with Jesse Plemons and Molly Shen a few years ago. He was a head writer on SNL, so he's got a good track record too. I definitely recommend the other two over on HBO. Any other recommendations, picks for the week?
I see you saw Holy Motors. Did you see Annette?
No, I'm watching Holy Motors so that I can feel free to watch Annette. That'll come up soon.
Right. Then we'll talk about it.
I want to talk to you.
Leave it at that.
Yeah. I finished White Lotus, which we were talking about briefly on the last episode. I like it quite a bit. I think I like it more than Nine Perfect Strangers. You know, I think the slowly simmering tensions in that show are done in a way that pulls you in, and I think the personalities are really well drawn, and that they feel very lifelike in certain ways. Like there's certain characteristics that either you've seen in yourself or you've seen in other people. Like I know there's just like the thing that I was unfortunately dealing with watching The White Lotus was recognizing some annoying parts of myself in the Jake Lacey character. Like the way that he acts when he feels like he's been screwed over. Like I know that feeling. I know that feeling of like, I will get you for this. But I think that's a sign of a well-written show and a well-written character. And I think Mike White is onto something here with his depictions of people and particularly his depictions of privilege. That being said, it is really weird to lean so heavily into some of those aspects while then committing some of those faults yourself with your own show. Like, where's Lonnie? Why didn't Lonnie come back? That's just weird that the characters are so quickly written off. You did mention last episode that interview he did in Vulture, which I dropped a link to in the description. I'll do that again here. I do think it's a really informative Q&A for his headspace when writing the show, but I think, you know, it's shout out to the interviewer whose name I'm forgetting right now, who I think pressed him on the right topics and got really good questions out of him and you know, didn't just make it easy for him, you know. So I think ultimately, though, even though I see some faults in the show, I was entertained by it. I think the performances are really good. I was really happy to see Jennifer Coolidge in that kind of a role. Natasha Rothwell I liked quite a bit on the show. And I think it's entertaining enough that I'll take the conflictedness with it for the journey that it brought me on, you know?
You excited for season 2?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, is it going to go back to Hawaii? I don't know.
I think it stays in the White Lotus. I mean, I believe it's an international hotel, so it could literally be a White Lotus somewhere else. It's supposed to be an anthology, but hey, I agree with you. They feel real because I'm pretty sure they are real, and Mike White's not getting invited back to some parties, that's for sure.
You know, it's also interesting because Mike White was able to write this very quickly. I think the entire show was conceived and filmed during the pandemic. So maybe he'll have a little bit more time to flesh out some other ideas, and maybe he'll be able to bring in some writers. So I think there's a lot of potential for a show like this.
Decent.
Anyway, another show that is continuing or has been on and has been discussed a lot on Twitter, Ted Lasso. I don't know if you've waded into the Ted Lasso discourse on Twitter at all. Like, is this show too happy? Is it not happy enough? Is it going to get not happy soon? And you guys better wait, because I've seen press screeners, and just wait 2 weeks. It'll get unhappy. I think people at home will have seen all 8 episodes that were provided to press by the time this episode is out. We haven't gotten the 9th and the 10th episode. I don't know if you're all the way caught up. I am.
I am as well.
I have really been enjoying this season. I don't know if I find it quite as funny as the first season. There are a few moments that ring hollow to me. Like, I felt, particularly in the Christmas episode, they leaned a little bit too hard on the idea that everybody loves each other and this is just a big family, in a way that felt almost like devoid of tension in some ways, or just it not necessarily authentic to these characters either, right? I just feel like it's a show that does so well at building that charmingness within its universe that I don't like when it bends the rules a little bit more. That being said, it hasn't, like, I don't think I've been sick of it at all. I still find it an incredibly sweet show, a life-affirming show in a lot of ways. But I do think that criticism of it for being too happy is not paying attention to the clever seeds they planted throughout the second season that are now starting to really pay off and bear fruit. Yeah. In the form of this sort of like breakdown that Ted is experiencing. And I think the team behind it are clever enough to make sure that they know the things that people are saying about it. They're very active on Twitter. I don't know if you've noticed that Bill Lawrence, Brendan Hunt, and all of them are on Twitter a lot. I tweeted about Ted Lasso from a burner account, and Jason Sudeikis liked the tweet. But I think they know the things that the show is known for, and they're going to subvert it in some way. And they've done a lot to plant it there. So I think it's a show that's still really entertaining, and I definitely one of my favorites so far from this year. I don't know what your thoughts have been on season 2.
That's been pretty good. I know that they had a 3-season arc in where they want to bring back a lot of the stuff from season 1 and answer it in 2. Literally, there's a joke that is pitched in season 1 and you don't get the punchline until season 2. It's like, damn, bro. In terms of what you were saying, I don't really mind the too happiness part. To me, I believe the show pretends to be more neutral than it really is. I think a lot of people, a wide variety of audiences, gravitate towards the show because they think it's very not political. I think it's secretly way more political than it thinks it is. And that's not a bad thing. But it definitely is. But I think it plays it off so well because you're so busy being invested with the characters that you don't really pay attention to the moments where they'll abruptly just stop it and do a bit like that. But I'm curious to see how they're going to wrap it up. I know from what you and I have seen, I don't know where they're at right now. I'm waiting literally for 9 and 10 to then catch up on it.
Same.
Where they're going to take it, mainly because they did this really weird thing in one of the last episodes, I'd say in the second half, where the couple at the stadium breaks the fourth wall. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. They.
What was
I
that?
think they were doing what's When Harry Met Sally, like a weird tribute to that, but it felt out of place.
It came out of nowhere. It's in the last half of the episode.
There's a couple moments that feel out of place this season.
I don't know what they're going for there, but again, it's only supposed to be 3 seasons, so I'm along for the ride. I'm very curious to see where they're going to take it. I really like the actress who plays the therapist. I really like the back and forth that she's been having with Ted Lasso. And I have some theories for why he really hates the therapy, and I've seen a lot of people also contemplate on like what they're going to be bringing up in terms of his, I guess, childhood, if you want to call it. But we'll see. I think it is going to get, like you said, a lot darker than people think for a show that's so happy.
Yeah, I think they're doing a lot of good stuff with the characters in the ways they're evolving their storylines. I don't know if I buy that Roy Kent is the super adaptive sweet boyfriend, but it's funny. It stays funny, and that's the number one job of a comedy, right? If it's making you laugh, and it does make me laugh.
Exactly. And if Roy Kent can do it, then so can you at home drinking your Budweiser. So,
what do you think? Is Roy Kent CGI or not?
Bro, I did not read into that. I literally just saw the headline. I was like, what the heck? What do you mean it's CGI? Where did this come from? The episodes you and I saw, we were giving it to them. Well, here's the thing. I mean, when we saw the episodes they gave us, they weren't even finished. So I was literally seeing them walk in to what was like a dumpster alley, and then they would end up being in a stadium.
My favorite thing about Ted Lasso, or at least having the press screeners for it, is when Ted walks out and he's like, "Soak it in, boys, Wembley Stadium," and then it's just Danny Rojas in front of a giant green screen.
And there's nothing there, bro. There's like a highway in the back, a nuclear plant to the left. Yeah. All the scenes in the office, like you realize how much of this is green screen, and you're like, dang, some of it you don't even realize, and the other ones, it definitely helps to have those effects in because they look goofy.
Yeah.
I did not hear about him being CGI, but I'll have to look into that. I'll have to investigate.
I'll send you a video. All right, I think that's it for our picks for the week, unless you got anything else.
Nope, not yet.
Yeah, so let us know what you've been watching in the comments down below and the best things you've seen. But that's about all for this week's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd at ZShevich. That's ZSHEVICH. Art, where can people find more from you? As I hiccup.
You can find me over at LME Explain on Twitter, on YouTube, on Letterboxd. You catch me every week here on the Intercut Podcast.
You can catch every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher. I like Overcast. And make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio feed, but the video feed as well on youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can catch our bright, smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Monday. And please leave us a comment, like the video, and consider heading over to iTunes to give us a much-requested 5-star review. Shout out again to Garrett and all our other listeners who've done that. And shout out to our listeners in Nigeria and Singapore for putting us on the TV and film podcast charts out there, like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those pages are at IntercutPod, and you can also support the show through Patreon at patreon.com/IntercutPod. You get updates throughout the week on any of those social media platforms from me, from Art, from all the guests we feature here, and now is a great time to go and follow particularly that Intercut Twitter feed, because we'll be getting out some quick fall festival reactions and retweeting stuff from guests who've been on the show as they get to see all those fun movies we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. So yeah, head over to at IntercutPod on your social media platform of choice to keep up with the latest. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, our nature is dark, but I can teach you to starve it so it doesn't consume you. Shouts out to Addams Family Films. That's a fun movie.